All right. Good evening, everyone. Looks like we are live on both Facebook and Instagram tonight, and you will notice I'm in a different location. I am not in the hangar this evening. I am in the quote-unquote home office, sitting here at the house. Several reasons why, but the main reason is I've got friends working in the hangar, friends that are working on their airplane doing an annual inspection. And with temperatures below zero this morning and the dark and the wind and the cold, told them to get in out of the cold and come in. So they're in there working on an old M4 Maul, and a lot of banging around, a lot of noise, but kind of fun to see airplanes kind of get back into shape. So that's what's going on in the hangar this evening. So that brought me home this evening to do this update for you here at the house. So good to see folks checking in and doing some things here on Instagram as well. Got a lot of folks showing up on Facebook tonight as well too. So got a bunch of things to talk about. Looks like there's a new feature in Facebook where I can share a link as we're talking, and I'll do that when I get to the appropriate time. Problem is there's only one link I can share through Facebook, and so I need to track that down a little bit more, see if there's more I can do, because there's other links I want to talk about that you need to be aware of so that you can go out and enjoy some of these things that I'm going to talk about this evening. First thing I want to mention is the FAA Safety Initiative was rolled out publicly back a couple weeks ago now, a few weeks ago. That document is out. I know a lot of folks have seen that document. I've seen some folks talking about it on social media, and some of the comments haven't been very positive, but for the most part, people are excited to see and hear what the FAA has gathered together from interviews with folks like you and me and with others there inside the FAA and other parts of aviation. So now the big push is the FAA is going to start prioritizing some of those recommendations that came from folks that they talked to. And so with those prioritizations that happen, we're going to be able to see about getting funding for that. And Rob, I see your comment there, and I'll get to that this evening too. So yeah, appreciate that feedback on the charts and the passes showing up. So back to the FASI, we're going to look for an opportunity to help the FAA prioritize those, and then an opportunity for us to help make sure there's going to be funding available to actually follow through. So we can cross that one off the discussion list. But speaking of funding, you've probably heard in the news the big infrastructure bill that passed the House of Representatives in Washington, D.C., and what all is included with that, and how is that going to help us in Alaska, and what is that going to do for aviation, and all that. So there's a lot of details that are in that bill. A lot of things that are still going to be hammered out, but what I can tell you is that there is a extreme benefit for Alaska when it comes to highways and the roads and bridges and the marine highway system, a lot of broadband internet, a lot of other things that are happening here in the state infrastructure-wise. And yes, there is some aviation components to that infrastructure bill. What some of that, let me plug in this microphone here, maybe that'll help a little bit with Instagram. So folks on Instagram maybe can give me a comm check. That'd be appreciated. Some of the things that are happening with that infrastructure bill nationwide, I'm just checking my notes here because these are big numbers and I want to make sure I get them correct. $15 billion nationwide in formula funding for the FAA Airport Improvement Program. And that supports projects such as planning, airport planning, expanding runways, taxiways, improving runway lighting and navigation systems. And Alaska has benefited tremendously through the years and decades from the AIP program, the Airport Improvement Program. FAA Airports Division has been very good with working with us here in Alaska to make sure that we get access to a lot of that funding. So there's $15 billion nationwide that we'll be able to compete for projects here in Alaska. There's $75 million to the Denali Commission. Now, the Denali Commission funds economic development and infrastructure here in Alaska. The Denali Commission has been a big part of helping state DOT and municipalities and other places when it comes to figuring out funding sources for projects. I know that our community here in Nenana, where I live, the Denali Commission has helped with matching funds in the past for airport projects here at our airport where I live here in Nenana. So $75 million has been given to the Denali Commission to help with those types of activities. A lot of other things happening in that bill. A lot of things will come out as the days come by and go with some more details along the way. There is some more opportunities for infrastructure funding. A lot of things happening in D.C. with that. Of course, now the question comes down to how is it going to be funded? Where's that money really going to come from? And there's a lot of discussion as to what it means, who's getting taxed, who's not getting taxed, where's it all going to come from and all that. So right now we're not going to get into that discussion. That's what we elect our officials for, to go to D.C. to figure that stuff out. And I encourage you to participate in that process and let Senator Murkowski and Senator Sullivan and Representative Young know your opinions about those things so they can accurately represent us. So let's see, what else do I want to talk about this evening? Let's go ahead and talk about the pass charting and mountain pass elevations on the sectional charts. There are 50, I think that number is accurate right now, around 50, let's just call it around 50, 50 mountain passes here in Alaska that now have elevations on the sectional chart for the mountain pass. And that has not always been the case, but now we do have that information on the sectional charts. And so that was a big effort, not just by the Alaska Airmen's Association, but by AOPA and the Alaska Aviation Safety Foundation, and a lot of other folks participated to get that back on the sectional charts. That is a big safety issue, and we've got a lot of good response from a lot of you for that. Part of that process, though, we found out that some of the passes may not have been named correctly in reference to the Geological Survey, and some things that were called a pass were not necessarily actually a pass. Ptarmigan Pass, specifically what I'm talking about. And you'll notice, excuse me, that has changed. That is now called Hell's Gate, and now there's Houston Pass back up actually at the highest point of that route. And so you need to update your charts if you don't see that on your current charts or in your flight app. Make sure you've got the latest details there. Let's see. Some good news. There is a comment period out right now for the Department of Transportation looking at, and I need to verify the end date on that. Now that I'm saying this, I need to verify when that ends. I haven't checked that in a few days. But because of COVID, the Department of Transportation has basically put a pause on fee and rate increases at rural airports. And that means tie-down fees, lease rates, all that kind of stuff. And so there's a comment period about that coming out there. So if you are at a rural airport and want to know more about that information, actually just search DOT Alaska and look through comment period for fee increase. And your search engine will pop that up. Let's see, other money type things. Yeah, these are pretty big things. That remember, I've talked about this in the past, where the Anchorage municipality and their aircraft tax, that whole structure has changed, and effectively September 1st of this year, the tax went away for non-commercial aircraft. Now, the commercial aircraft are still being charged a tax, but the non-commercial, privately owned, privately operated airplanes that are based in the municipality of Anchorage are no longer being taxed. And so we consider that a big win for our members. And to follow along with that, the city of Homer has also changed their tax structure for aircraft, and it is no longer a market-based tax. It is now a flat rate tax. And so that's a major win. I read an article about how one of the operators down there was paying tens of thousands of dollars a year because the airplane was valued so high. It's a Twin Otter, and now he's paying a whole lot less in taxes because of this new funding structure, which allows him to possibly put that towards more upgrades to make that airplane even better equipped, or do other things to help build his business. So And it's not just business stuff that's happening there in Homer, privately owned airplanes as well, a part of that. Okay, so other things that are showing up in the Federal Register. T-routes, the new, I shouldn't say new because they've been around for a long time. It's starting to show my age and how much gray I have. But T-routes, GPS-based navigation routes that are basically like Victor Airways, which are based off of VORs, but T-routes are based off of GPS. The Alaska Airmen's Association, again in conjunction with all of our industry partners, have been asking the FAA to increase the number of T-routes here in the state of Alaska. And they've listened, and they have actually implemented some of these new T-routes. And one of the signs that they are about to be published and about to be available for use is because they are now starting to show up in the Federal Register. And that's exciting news. That is actually one of those things that doesn't seem like a big deal, but when you've been working on a particular project with the government for many, many years, and you actually see it published in the Federal Register, you know you're getting close. You know you're making headway. So that was an exciting thing to see happen. Okay, so Birchwood, folks that operate in and out of Birchwood, you probably are aware of this already, but there's a master plan revision underway there in Birchwood. And so if you are not aware of that and you do use the Birchwood Airport, you should probably already be a member of the Birchwood Pilots Association if you use that airport a lot. Appreciate your membership in the Alaska Airmen's Association, but you need to also be involved at your local level in your local pilot groups, whether it's there at Birchwood or in other parts around the state. And if your airport does not have a local pilots association, a pilot group, you should probably consider starting one because it helps when things like this come up, where you can have a unified voice to talk to the airport sponsor and the FAA and tell them what your needs are and what your wishes are for infrastructure there at your airport. So that's happening right now in Birchwood with the Birchwood Master Plan update. All right, so Matsu and Palmer. See somebody checked in from Palmer this evening, so glad to have you with us tonight. Getting reports of increased traffic in the Palmer area. A lot of more folks using that airport, which is great. Good to see that. And some concerns about traffic pattern entries and radio usage and all that kind of stuff. Encourage you to read the Airman's Information Manual and just refresh your memory as to what some of the proper recommended procedures are for that. A lot of traffic in the Matsu Valley, and I know that the CTAF frequencies can be rather congested from time to time, so just watch your radio etiquette. If you want to talk about just what all's happening in your life, don't do it on the CTAF. Find another frequency to do that, and make sure your calls for traffic patterns are accurate and timely. So, all right, so let's talk about some other things that I had here on the list about websites that you need to go look at and you need to participate in. Let's see if that actually will happen. Apparently I tried to share, and I'm not sure if it actually went through. It's hard to tell on my end. A link on Facebook for the Alaska Weather YouTube channel. Now, folks who've been flying in the state for many years have been familiar with Alaska weather on public television. It's due to some schedule changes and other things that may not be as easily available in your area. But I want to remind you that it is available on YouTube. And if you go and do a search on YouTube for Alaska Weather TV, actually AKWX TV is the short handle for their channel. You can actually look at the weather segment that's recorded every evening. And if you can't watch it on TV live, which who watches live TV anymore, you can now see it on YouTube at your own pace and at your own leisure. I was actually in a meeting today talking about some of the ways that they depict some of their information, and great folks there at the Alaska Aviation Weather Unit with the National Weather Service, and they really do appreciate feedback and want to know how their products help you out. So if you haven't watched Alaska Weather in a while, or if you have no idea what I'm talking about, go to YouTube and search for Alaska Weather TV. AKWX TV is their short handle for their channel. So encourage you to go look at that. Another tool that I'm using a lot right now is an experimental tool, is a cloud cross-section tool from that NASA has been developing with the Joint Pacific Satellite System and University of Colorado, actually Colorado State, sorry, don't want to offend anybody there at Colorado State, Colorado State, and just some really cool stuff that they're doing with satellite imagery. And if you want to know more about what's going on there, aviation.cira, C-I-R-A, colostate.edu is the address to go look at that. And you can, a lot of details, a lot of information, but you can go look at some cross sections of some routes here in the state. You can do your own freeform route. Yesterday, I flew to Fort Yukon, and I used their tool to find out what the weather was going to be over the White Mountains. There's no weather reporting up there, but I was able to get a pretty accurate representation of what I could expect when it came to clouds, freezing levels, and the type of clouds I was going to run into, all because of that satellite product. So once again, aviation.cira.colostate.edu. JPSS cloud section may be something else you could search for and find it there. If you can't find it, send me a message. I'll send you the link and do that. I can only show one link per live event, apparently, with Facebook, or I'd share some of these others with you. Another one that you need to go look at and offer some feedback on is the experimental graphic forecast. And I use this tool a lot. I'll check this 2 or 3 times a day to kind of get a picture of what the weather is going to be doing, not just now, but up to 18 hours ahead. And testbed.aviationweather.gov, and you can go look at the GFA, Arctic, and Alaska, or some other things that you can find there, and it's not too hard to find. But pretty cool stuff they're doing, and tools that they're experimenting with to try to work into being readily available for all of us as we fly in pre-flight planning. So just some of the things that I look at that I wanted to pass along to you as you are out there doing your pre-flight planning. So I'm just checking things off my list here to make sure, you're not a good pilot if you don't use a checklist, right? So those are the big things I wanted to talk about with you this evening. And we're just past the 15-minute mark. I try to keep these under, around that 20-minute mark for sure. Anything longer than that, we tend to lose people and loss of attention span. So appreciate folks checking in, looking for questions that may have popped up. I didn't see any here on Facebook that popped up, on Instagram didn't see anything either. And just Rob's comment there about altitudes in the passes on the charts. Yeah, you're welcome, Rob. Glad we were able to get that done. That's a major win for us here in Alaska. They were on the charts in the lower 48 in places, but not here in Alaska. So I'm scrolling back through Instagram right now to make sure I didn't miss any questions that may have popped up there. So with that, I'll just wrap things up by saying if you haven't bought your tickets yet for the FX3 Cub that we're raffling off, we are selling tickets left and right with that, and there'll be some more details about that actual build. Dave, I see your question there. I'll answer that here in just a second. With the build that's happening next week, we've got some folks heading down to actually start building the airplane, and they're going to be posting things on social media and giving us daily updates, it sounds like. So that'll be good. And of course, you need to buy your raffle ticket so you can actually be eligible to win that. So, David, back to your question about which cities dropped GA plane tax. So, Anchorage completely dropped their municipal tax for non-commercial aircraft. Commercial airplanes still have a tax to pay, but non-commercial aircraft in Anchorage no longer have a tax to pay as of September 1st. And then the city of Homer changed their taxing structure from a market value to a flat rate. And so, Dave, if you got your bill in the mail, there are people still getting bills, but it was, if you look close at it, it's probably for the period prior to September 1st. And so if you need more details about that, pretty sure you've got my contact information there, David. So we can talk more about that if you'd like. I have heard a couple of folks that have still gotten their bill, but there will be no new taxes effective after September 1st of this year. So, yeah, I got all the links and everything to the municipal code and all that stuff that we can send to you to make sure that they did not make a mistake, because tax offices do make mistakes sometimes. All right. Well, with that, not seeing any more questions pop up. And just one more chance for folks to ask something if they need to here. Let me get down to the bottom of the conversation here on Instagram. Okay. Yep. I'm not seeing anything. It's good to give you a short update. Please email me. You can call the airman's office and they can patch you through to my cell phone. Send me a message through social media. Plenty of ways to get in touch with me. If you find out about a new issue or if you have questions about existing issues, really do appreciate the feedback I get from all the members out there with what we can do to help protect, promote, and preserve general aviation in Alaska. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and say goodnight.